wait.
Prithviraj Singh.
Yeah. So please could wait. Okay, now we can start. So my voice is coming. Okay. So now I would like to request our next speaker, whose name is Prithviraj Singh. So Dr. Singh has done his background is from biology and computer science, and he did his PhD in bioinformatics from Manit Bhopal, and with joint PhD from the Tel Aviv University, Israel. Now, coming up, about his research, what he's basically interested in, his lab is doing fabulous research in JUIT, which he has joined back in 2010. And his lab is exploring various avenues in genomics, proteomics, all in all, which is, by far related to human diseases. Now, he is also interested in annotations of the complex biological networks through computational systems biology approach. In particular, his lab is interested in DNA repair mechanisms and their potential roles in malignancies. All in all, he is also exploring some neurodegeneration diseases such as Alzheimer's diseases through myriad of computational approaches. Till date, he has 7 PhD students awarded under his guidance, and 3 are presently working with him. And his lab is generously supported by DST, DBT, and ICMR. Now, just wanted to give a very short, brief overview about his academic life. So, after his PhD, his postdoc was also from Tel Aviv University, Israel. And after that he was an information officer in the Bioinformatics Center at DAAV Indore, MP, India. In 2010, he joined JUIT Solan, Himachal Pradesh, India, as an assistant professor, and till date, he is an associate professor in the same institute. So, sir, I leave the dice for you. Please share your science with us. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much, Gaurav, for very elaborative introduction. I hope I am audible.
Yes, you're audible, sir.
Okay, so let me share my screen first. I hope you can see my slides now.
Yes, your slides are also visible, sir. Yes.
Thank you. So, first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Raghava sir for inviting me and giving me the opportunity, and to you also, because you are also co-chair of all the sessions and this particular very beautiful summit that you have planned actually. So as you already told me about, like, I'm working here in JP University, and this is the Center of Excellence in Healthcare Technologies and Informatics. I'm coordinator for this center also, and I'm working in the Department of Biotechnology and Bioinformatics. So before starting, as Raghava sir is also here, I just try to put few pictures, because as you told that my lab is involved in DNA repair mechanisms and other human diseases like Alzheimer's disease we are focusing on, and we are trying to apply various approaches from either genomics, you say computational systems biology, and from other domains also. And then we are trying to solve some mystery. We are trying to give some biologically meaningful information to the scientific world, which is actually narrowed down, and that is really good as an input for the experimental biologists. So I just want to share a few pictures with Dr. Raghava sir. I think this is from 2015. I was in Punjab University, so we were sharing one platform for one conference and workshop. So Dr. Raghava with my PhD scholars. Then this one, we were with Professor P.K. Gupta when we were collected together for INBIX 2017 in Jaipur. So I hope Raghava sir remember all these pictures. And then this is the picture where I personally invited him for National Symposium on Computer Systems Biology. So it was March 2016. So this is how the things started. We were knowing already together, but we were together again for one international conference in NIT Bhopal, where my supervisor, Professor Pardasani, invited Dr. Raghava also. I was also there. So there we also discussed some science. So as you know that this particular summit is regarding the, you can say, bioinformatics or health informatics, clinical informatics, and lots of wonderful speakers I am listening from last couple of days. And I can see that how they have implemented research onto their various kind of domains. And we know that bioinformatics, as we see, it started like a tool for annotation, and now it's a complete science in itself. You talk a term and bioinformatics is there for you. It's not only for the molecular level, you go for the very high level, that is the network level as well as ecosystem level. So you just name an entity, you just name a level, bioinformatics is there for you to help you out. We know that it started like a development of simple procedures, either informational and computational procedures for solving problems in biological, biomedical, and healthcare sciences. But it has gone beyond that boundary now. It's just not just a resource development. It has provided so much things to the mankind, to the human, to the other living systems on this world. Because we know that when we look at the objectives in bioinformatics in the beginning, we try to collect the data that was being generated at that time in the 90s and early 20s when things were going on, the high throughput data generated, and there was a problem in the storage of the data, the collection of the data, the analysis of the data, and then to interpret that biologically meaningful way. So all these things were going on in parallel, and we know computational things were also growing at that time. So when those things were growing, definitely the facilities were there, experimental things were increasing, the techniques were developed, then computational techniques were developed in parallel. So development of computational procedures along with the development of experimental procedures, huge amount of data, huge amount of technology. And this parallel processing of two different domains, where earlier we were never talking when biology is associated with computer science. But when these things merged, actually, this is how this beautiful child was born, where father was information sciences, mother was biology. And with the combination of this, meeting of this computational and biological sciences, this beautiful child of bioinformatics was born, and it is now an adult. When we talk about the Human Genome Project, you know, the chairman of this committee, Francis Collins, he compared the Human Genome Sequencing Project with two other very significant scientific achievement, which was splitting the atom, and second was going to the moon. And he told that this is comparable with the hopes alive actually. The hopes were rising at that time. There were issues also, definitely. When you look at the Human Genome Project, the ethical, legal, and social implications, that ELSI, that is another problem. Because if you say that your genetic profile is public, nowadays everybody is talking in terms of social sites. So if your genetic profile is public and your boss is having that profile on his laptop or computer or mobile, then he might be knowing so many characteristics of yours. And one such can be like you are lazy, you are unproductive, and frankly, you have got a large genome. So this is just one side. There can be many sides. So ethical issues are always there. So when technology develops, things are having these kind of impacts. This I am telling you purposely because this is like future. If we are not going to see, maybe our kids will definitely see this. Which genomes are available? You go to the supermarket, you pick a basket, and these genomes are available. Maybe they are on sale. And if they are on sale, like if you say genomesonline.org, they are available over there. Then in future, we can have maybe the genome card, like Flipkart, Amazon. So we can have genomecard.com. This is just virtual. I made it. So you have this online genome mega store. You go to the supermarket for the picking of a particular genome, and additionally, you can get an additional discount. Okay, you apply this coupon, Jan at T20, you will get additional 20% discount. So this is just the future, like when things are going on, yeah, we are having this kind of things in future. So now coming to another thing, that artificial intelligence and machine learning, because these domains, when they were providing help to all kind of sciences for the data analysis, definitely AI is one such a stream that is providing you lots of hopes also. It is also having limitations, like machine learning was having its own limitations. Then we have the deep learning, and now it's AI. So combination of all these three, if you look at, they can do wonders for you. Even the doctor who is looking for a particular patient, and he's asking, if you want a second opinion, I will ask my computer. So maybe based upon AI, computer can provide you something different. Now, as you know, when mails were coming from Raghav sir regarding this particular summit, it was told that you have to present your own work. So I was working on that, and accordingly I sent the abstract, and accordingly I compiled my data, like whatever work we have done for various kind of human diseases, either it's about the web server development, web-based applications, or it's about the databases or some protocols or computational pipeline that have been developed. So I tried to compile all that thing because we were using lots of information from biological sciences, but we were applying it through genomic analysis or through microRNAs on various human diseases. Either data was from transcriptomic data, some structural data was there. We were trying to work on SNPs also at sequence level as well as structure level. Then we were applying systems biology approach for analyzing that data. So this is how we were working. So systematically, I will try to compile it in a way. It's difficult to summarize each and everything in like 30, 40 minutes, but I will try to give you a glimpse of all the things that we have done or we are doing or what plans we have. So first, I would like to start with one or two case studies which are based upon, like, one is miRNA-based co-expression network reconstruction, system level network analysis, and then drug target interaction network reconstruction. So I will give you one or two cases from this particular domain. Like, we were working on the analysis of microRNA for differential biological networks. So we were working on some like general pipeline which could be applied on any kind of data that is available to us. So we know the importance of miRNA. They are really interesting to work on. A small family of RNA, and they are having significant role, which can be related to the gene expression at post-transcription level. That is, they involve in PTMs also, and they have cleavage of mRNA, translational depression, and mRNA decay. So these are the processes where they're involved. And so much of work was done and is being done related to various kind of NGS data. So in our lab only, we were working on the newly sequenced transcriptome data, and we were trying to analyze those for some medicinal herbs, and we were looking for the important biomarkers and additionally their role with respect to other diseases. So this is what we were trying to do. So this was based upon the real transcriptomic data that we were having for one plant, that was Jatropha. Here we were working on two conditions, one was control and another one was disease condition. So differential conditions we were trying to identify, we were trying to predict the targets, then gene ontological network reconstruction was done based upon some parameters, which would be some statistical parameters, correlation coefficient, and co-expression analysis was also done. And then finally, we were trying to link that co-expression modules at pathway level. So this is how we made this framework that is available over here on my web page. So we were trying to identify this microRNA target distribution in healthy disease conditions. Their distribution, some novel miRNA that are available, we identified, and we try to correlate that. And this is how this pipeline we tested on the real data that was generated here, and then we worked on it. So this was related to the Jatropha healthy and the disease condition. So this was the one work. This is the flowchart of this particular work that we were doing, where we were trying to identify this miRNA bipartite network. Then interaction data was identified after removing the redundancy, calculating the coefficient PCC, and then we were doing it with the help of a threshold. If it was coming under that category, then we were having this as weight assigned array, and that array was normalized again, and based upon the threshold we were deciding that it will be part of our co-expression network or not. And there then we ended, otherwise discarded. So this is how the whole framework was working in the background, and based upon that we identified some crucial miRNA, their target genes, their top co-expressed genes are also being mentioned, and their contributing pathways. So this is how a particular framework was developed and was checked on a real data. We tried it on some other data also, and results are very good, and then it was published. So miRNAs, their pathway association was clearly visible from this study. So this is how we were going. So the implication of this framework was data that is available. It can be related to other transcriptomic data, or it can be related to other diseases. Similar work, we were working on this medicinal plant where we were trying to identify the microRNAs. So we worked on this plant also. We published this work over here, and that framework that we developed for miRNA analysis was published in scientific reports. Then there is another avenue, like we were working, because all these work was having lots of systems biology in the background. So we were working on the network level interaction reconstruction. So here we were trying to identify some drug targets, because the plant that we were working on had some important secondary metabolites and which are really crucial. So we applied an integrative approach to develop the computational pipeline for drug target interaction network analysis. So the motivation behind this is that this plant is again found in Himalayan region, and it is having so much medicinal value, and it has 4 major metabolites, peptide 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're trying to explore all these 4 actually and their specific role in various human diseases. So this is how we were trying, and why we were doing it, because some already published literature was telling us that, okay, let's start some work because they have some hepatoprotective, some anti-cancer, some neuroprotective properties, and they have some other anti-allergic and anti-asthmatic properties. So this literature was the basis for working on this. So we made a manual pipeline where we started with the plant selection and metabolic screening. Then we looked for the target prediction, where we were trying to have the batch job, because it's not easy to do, like if you are working on maybe 1,000 compounds, so it's difficult to do manually. So we were looking for the batch servers. So we were using the SAM-mapper, then co-expression analysis and gene ontology was done. Then we reconstructed the small modules. Then we made pathways and then their mapping with the targets. So this is how this particular framework was developed. So based upon that, we identified some targets from Homo sapiens, like known targets of more than 2,000. We downloaded their 2D structures and then we checked for their targets. Because it was like a batch submission, so we worked on this and we identified that co-express modules and the pathway mapping was really crucial. But the only thing was that peptide 3 and 4 were omitted because they were not providing us lots of significant results. So, but we carry forward the P1 and P2, that peptide 1 and 2, and they were really significant in the results also. And if you look at this particular diagram, this was showing you the peptide 1 and 2 and how the docking was done for various targets. So after doing this target and all this interaction analysis, because this was related to the blind interaction analysis. And then we were trying to identify this in literature also, just to confirm if things are available positively or not. So many targets that we identified were associated with hepatocellular carcinoma, and some of them were associated with neurological conditions also. Like TGF beta was found, DAPK1 was found. So this provided lots of leads for the further studies. Then connecting the modules for peptide 1, where we have this RAF and TGF beta 2, and here we have few important entities for peptide 2. We created the pathways also, just to represent that how they are involved in various processes where lots of cellular and biological entities are involved. So reconstruction of this pathway provided us some pathway level annotations also. This work we published in this scientific report again, the integrative approach to develop computational pipeline for drug target interaction network analysis. Now some work that we were doing, because as you know, I started working here in 2010 and we started working on Alzheimer's disease. The first project that I got from DST was on DNA repair associated malignancies, and then second was from ICMR, that was on Alzheimer's disease. So I was working on parallel with these 2 diseases majorly. So as per the interest of the students, we were trying to categorize them onto the work And this is how we were moving on. So this work we were trying. So this computational protocol that we developed for the microarray data analysis, and that we started in 2010. So gene expression data that was available for neurological conditions, especially Alzheimer's disease. So we have taken that, pre-processed the data, then identify the differentially expressed gene through methods like SAM. Then we categorize them through PCA, SOM, and other methods. Topological overlapping was also evaluated, gene enrichment analysis, and additionally network motif analysis was also done for the first time for this kind of data, because on Alzheimer's there was no study where people tried to identify the network motifs. So we did all this analysis, and then finally the work was annotated. So either we were working on gene expression data, generating volcano plot, or generating lots of ontological analysis that related to the cellular component, either biological process or molecular function. So this ontological analysis, the interaction analysis, and the differential expression analysis. All this was done on various kind of neurological data. And this was the interesting part for this, because network motifs are not identified here. Because when we know the motifs are there, we know that if they are coming into the category of network motif, definitely they have some significance with respect to the structure, function, and evolution of the biological system under consideration. So there are so many studies, like in the early 20th century, when people were working, like 2000, 2001, 2, 3, 5. Lots of work are going on Saccharomyces cerevisiae, E. coli, and other microorganisms also. But nothing was done on this kind of pathway. So we tried to explore it, and apparently we found some interesting network motifs. And here these are blind network motifs, but they are directed. So it can give you the direction, like if you want to go from here, this node to this node, and then like this. So this direction, like here, all three are connecting onto one node. So next target was to annotate them and how this can be associated with some regulation of the network. So we tried to work on like 3 to 8 node motifs, but most popular we found was 3 and 4. And especially the 4 one was the most frequent in our case. So if you see over here, these all from A to I are all 4 node motifs with various kind of representations. Then we try to annotate them. So some of them are being represented here. And we try to compare it with the standard dictionary that is developed by Urielo. So the dictionary ID, if you see here ID 14 or ID 282 ID, so they are actually associated with the standard dictionary proposed by Urielo. Then we identified, okay, like here, if PSEN1 is inhibiting these 3, so this direction was associated with their activation or inhibitor mechanism, activation or inhibitory mechanisms. In some cases, we found some unknown data also, and in some cases, like here, stage is changing P25 to P35. So this is how the annotation of these network motifs provided some crucial signatures for the biological pathways associated with Alzheimer's disease. Similarly, we were working on some pathways also. So we were working on the reconstruction of various pathways and then to simulate them. Like this particular one is for the Geroderma pigmentosum that we were working on based upon the repair system. Now, another domain, another area that we were trying that was associated with the molecular characterization of natural compounds to find inhibitors for ACHE. This, as I told you, we were working on ICMR funded project, and then we tried to identify some natural compounds. We have taken control some already existing drugs, and then it was done at in vitro level also. So not only at computational level, because part of that work was related to experimental stuff. So this was a simple procedure. We were trying to use the molecular docking and molecular dynamic simulation study using Autodock and other like open source softwares, and then performing the molecular dynamic simulations, calculating RMSD and RMS, and just to check the stability of the complex. So after selecting all the compounds, finally we were consensus on these compounds. Donepezil was the established drug for ACHE, but we have taken another chemical that was the bigger state. Additionally, we tried to put some compounds which can be naturally available, either it's ascorbic acid, caffeine, gallic acid, and quercetin. So major purpose was to look for the effect of these four compounds with respect to the acetylcholine esterase. So we did all the RMSD, RMSF for all these six, and you can see the results were interesting. We were doing it, and then we tried to do it at the in vitro level. So this ETBR staining was done. Here you can see this was the control, the top one, and this donepezil was the drug. That is, you can see easily over here. So from our compounds, especially this quercetin and caffeine were providing us very promising results. So even after this, we were trying to identify that how the compounds like quercetin, caffeine, they were even little better than the already existing drug. So they were most effective compounds. So computational study followed by the in vitro validations providing us the leads that these compounds, caffeine and quercetin, they found to be good inhibitors of ACHE, and the molecules or food rich in these molecules might be beneficial for improving the cholinergic signaling during the Alzheimer's disease. So this is one work that we did at that time, and we published this also in current Alzheimer's research, where we applied all this computational and experimental validations. Then few years back, we worked on the tau-based approach also, because the plan was to look for some specific enzymes. So here we look for some kinases, because we know that problem in kinases is specificity, and many people are trying this on various kind of malignancies, but we tried it on Alzheimer's. So here we selected GSK3 beta and CDK5. So just want to show you some results from this CDK5, because we were trying to screen the zinc database, and we have taken lots of compounds from there, and through virtual screening, docking, and molecular dynamic simulation studies, we were able to reach on a consensus of few compounds which could be beneficial for the scientific community. So we took this one, CDK5, we started working on it, and we identified some interesting compounds which are available over here. So either you look at this, these compounds with their zinc IDs, and they provided us promising results. So we performed all these studies. Either it's here, we performed like 100 nanosecond simulations just to check the stability of the complex, and results were really promising. So all these compounds with respect to their radiation gyration, hydrogen bonds, SASA, PCA, all these analyses were performed, and then these compounds were proposed as potential lead molecules for CDK5. So this is some of the work that specifically or majorly, you can say, focused on Alzheimer's disease, but additionally, my lab is involved in the development of various kind of databases and web-based applications. So just would like to give you a glimpse in the next 10 minutes about the work. Like this work is based upon the frame shift mutations. We know that frame shift mutations are there occurring, but there was no tool or method available for analyzing this frame shift mutations with respect to their contribution for hidden stop codons. So this was like when frame is shifted, how this particular process is affecting the recoding event actually. So we call them as the hidden stop codon. So when we say hidden stop codons, it means when frame is shifted, the natural codon is converted into the stop codon, and that can cause the premature protein production, and that can be small in size. Sometimes that can be cytotoxic also. So just want to look at how this particular correlation between the codon usage frequencies in the genomic sequences and their contribution towards hidden stop codons in off-frame context. Because we were saying that when frame is being shifted, there are chances that some codons can be converted into codons which are actually making same amino acid, but some might be converted into stop codon, and that stop codon creation is actually problematic. So this was related to the MNUS hypothesis, and then we developed a web-based application that is available as a shift, a frame shift analysis web server. So this is available again here by info.org shift. We publish it here. Here you just put your sequence. If it's coding, it's better. And then you look for the genetic code system. So drop down will provide you various genetic code systems available, like either it's standard nuclear, it's vertebrate mitochondrial, invertebrate mitochondrial, yeast mitochondrial, and plant plastid, and so many others. And then you submit, and then you will get your data accordingly. So that was related to the frame shift mutation. Another web-based application that we developed was HLA-B27 PRED, where we applied this machine learning approach and for this particular allele, and that was also available here, where we applied just two methods like SVM and PSSM to predict like the best sequences that is available with respect to the input data. Then another tool that we made was based upon the DNA fragment extraction, because when you are working on genetic engineering, you are working on restriction enzymes, so restriction mapping is also important. So how you are going to identify those fragments based upon the restriction enzyme? So this web farm, because here the computational algorithm that we applied was based upon the finite automata from theory of computations. So it was based upon the finite automated restriction mapping. So I put this name purposely like web farm. So web server for finite automated restriction mapping, you put your sequence here, you select from here single or multiple restriction enzymes, you submit your job, and then you will get the data that will provide you the positions, the mapping for a particular restriction enzyme on that genomic sequence and where it is actually cleaving. Then besides web-based applications, some databases that I would like to mention over here. Like this is one of the first database that I have developed was on Eucalyptus SNPs, where we were working on the EST data or EST libraries available at that time. And we try to identify novel SNPs from this data and their sites specifically from ESTs. And then we identified that how this could help us in providing that information. And that was developed as a small database that is available as SNP DB, and it was based upon Eucalyptus SNPs. So here you see the tissue type from where ESTs were available, either it's mesophyll leaves, differentiating xylem, flower, pseudopex, woody tissue, or root, and the number of SNPs that were identified. And some were actually in thousands. So that was really interesting information that we published in Journal of Genetics long back. Now, when I was working on DNA repair system and when my students are working on there, we try to identify some specific resource, and we found that those resources are lacking some important information, and we were working on the NSSNPs. So what we did, we tried to identify all NSSNPs and those 100 plus DNA repair genes. Later on, we made another database, I will tell you, where we included 150 genes. We identified all the NSSNPs. We also compiled their pathway-associated information, and we worked on some genetic parameters also that was related to haplotypes, linkage disequilibrium, their phosphorylation sites. And all this information was compiled and proposed as a very interesting database that was Dr. GAS, that is DNA repair database for genetic association studies. So this one we published in DNA Repair, and it is available to search for based upon various kind of mechanism, the search through NSSNPs, based upon haplotype, based on LD, and there are some other advanced options also available. Continuation to that, as we were working on the DNA repair pathways and colorectal cancer specifically, so we made another database where we were trying to identify CRC, endometrial, and Lynch syndrome. So we specifically made a database on these three diseases only. It contains 150 genes, where majorly BER, that is base excision repair, and mismatch repair mechanisms are involved. We included over here the data from the methylation, drug sensitivity, microRNAs, copy number variation, and somatic mutations. All this data is available. Additionally, we made multiple sequence alignment of all the genes. We provided that, and we also run that in the string. So we provided the link for the string database also. So if you want to connect like your data with the interaction association, you can easily get connected. This one we published in PLOS One. It was for. So this was named as dream cells, like DNA repair mechanisms in colorectal cancer, endometrial cancer, and Lynch syndrome. Another database. This was developed by two of our BTech students majorly, which were working on the skin cancer actually. So, but as we were looking for the specialized repair mechanism, so here we explored about the nucleotide excision repair mechanism, NER specific skin cancer that we identified, and based upon that we made this database. So these are some of the databases. Then recently we made another database on Alzheimer's disease because we feel that some biomarker information was missing in some resources. So we tried to collect some data for the factors, SNPs, miRNAs, mitochondrial genes even, and other information related to Alzheimer's disease, and this was proposed as ABCD, Alzheimer's disease biomarkers comprehensive database. Okay, Gaurav, I hope I have some more time.
I think so, sir. How much time you need more, sir?
Maximum 10 minutes.
Okay, I think it's fine with us. Please.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So here we have another database.
But one caution I just want to say, like your voice have been, I mean, when it started the, presentation, it was loud, but suddenly it's now fainting. So just wanted to let you know, sir.
Okay, sure. So this was another database that we have developed. It was network motif database. As I told you that we did lots of work on network motifs identification from biological networks. So what we did, we worked on various repair mechanisms and associated human malignancies. And then we tried to identify various kind of network motifs. And this database we developed from those network motifs that were available from biological databases. So this we made, and this is available as NMDB. And here, if you go, like you can search from a particular category, like it's repair, then infectious, cancer, cardiovascular. So in all these categories, you have subcategories also. Even you can change the subgraph size also here. So based upon the change in the frequency and subgraph size, you can search, and then you can look for specific motifs that are available. This also be published. So this is also a unique database. They are static in nature nowadays because when we worked on, but the idea is that when you are working on a particular category, you can look for specialized motifs from there, and then you can go on for further annotation. Then recently, we have published some SNP-based studies. So as I told you, we were working on the sequence-based technology as well as structure-based technology. And we were trying to make a consensus. We were never relying on just one tool. We are trying to have like 10, 15 tools at least for sequence-based and then structure-based. And then based upon that, we are making a consensus, like how a particular SNP is really important. If it's as NSSNP, how it can affect the structural and functional aspects of a protein of interest. So this study was based upon the DNA repair genes for xeroderma pigmentosum, where we applied the mutational and site-specific structural investigations. So here we were working on the zero-terminal pigmentosome and we worked on DNA pair genes specifically for SNPs. Similarly, another study where we were working on colorectal cancer. So we were trying to have this TGF-beta1 gene and all its associated SNPs. And this was published. Then recently, one more work we have published that we were working on this GOT1, glutamic oxaloacetic transmembrane 1 gene, which is having role in malignancies as well as neurological conditions. So we started working on and we tried to identify the structural and functional analysis. And it was also a very comprehensive in silico study where major focus was on SNPs. So this is all about the work that our lab is doing and various kind of protocols we are either following or we are trying to develop our own computational protocols. We try to develop many resources. Some web-based applications are also available. So either it's on neurological conditions, specifically Alzheimer's disease, or if you go to the cancer, it's always or majorly related to human DNA repair system. Because when you are working on these kind of domains, definitely we do analytical work, we do lots of quantitative analysis, but the important information is how you are submitting that work to the scientific community. So it can be in web-based application form, it can be a framework, it can be a computational pipeline, or it can be a very good resource. So all these things are available to the scientific community where they can utilize this data. And that's what my message is also to the students, especially that when you are working on these kind of things, you should work with some principles with you. You want to develop a database, maybe you want to work on a protocol. Credit should always be there. And here I just want to add 5 E's because E being the 5th letter of the English alphabet, where I just try to put like ethics, energy, environment, expression, and eternal. So you should follow the ethics. You should never lower down your energy because finally you have to save your environment as well as the energy of your environment. Your expression should always be in such a way that things are giving you the positive vibes. And finally, when you are proposing few things, that should be eternal. Means your result should be so much strong, so much robust on various parameters that nobody can deny that they are not correct. Then I am sure you are going to present the correct science to the world. So remember these 5 E's: ethics, energy, environment, expression, and eternal. This is my own. You can make your own. So now this is not the end, not even the beginning of the end. It is perhaps the end of the beginning. So if you are here, you have to follow the path of the life. Either it's a scientific or academic career or any other path to go here. So that's the final target. So you start from the bottom, you have to go to the top, but you have to be careful regarding these 5 E's. Do not let you down with any of these. This is our responsibility. Definitely, I would like to acknowledge IIIT Delhi, especially Raghav sir and Dr. Gaurav for inviting me, the whole scientific community involved in this summit, because I know so many interesting speakers, so much was there to listen in just 3 days. Definitely, I would like to acknowledge my university, my department, especially my Center of Excellence, which I am coordinating, and my lab. More about me are available over here. You just can surf it by bioinfoindia.org/Raj. This is my lab scholars. Manika already worked with Dr. Raghav sir when he was in MTech as NPDF. Priya was my first PhD scholar. She is now in Netherlands. Aswani and Ankita, they are working as RA in IHPT. Ankush is working as postdoc in Washington, DC, USA, Children's National Hospital. Nupur is working in Bioinformatics Institute, Bangalore. And Rohit, Arvind, and one more recently joined, Rahul. They are now doing PhD and they are in the final stages. This is just an aerial view of my place where I'm sitting. Currently, I'm sitting in this building, the main academic block. Raghav sir has been here already. Some of you might be here. If not, I will be happy to invite you all. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. This is another view of my campus from other side. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Singh, for a very stellar talk. Especially, I was totally impressed with the number of publications